Good morning. Continues last 2 days talk about self-identity, about the virtue, discipline, and precept. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about doubt. D-O-U-B-T, doubt. Doubt in Buddhism means the confuse about the religious life or spiritual life. So religious life have a lot of explanation and a lot of knowledge come into learning and study. Even though go more into investigation and observation, still doubt there if you cannot get the truth. So what is the truth mentioned by this learning and contemplating, even though observation, to get all these information, purifying until you get the insight. So Buddhism talk about insight. Doubt in Buddhism is related into doubt the awakening. Personality means you doubt for the awakened himself, the Buddha. Doubt of Dhamma and doubt of Sangha, doubts of discipline. This is called doubt related to this four purification. So the discipline, yesterday I already mentioned, and this life of identity, of self, need to be first breakthrough in order that this self-ego, that kind of self-conceit, will be more purified into his worldliness. Oh, I, me, and mine, like that, need to be overcome. So the Buddha mentioned about this universal, what you can study, you can observe. The universal have two things going on, changing. The first thing is form. Related to the form is exterior form and physical form. This is only thing the universal can. So if the scientists can be prove what is this universal means, is material science or physics science. They already been covered what that phenomenon is all about. Settle and far. The second thing is, other than form, there is a name. Equivalent means they have the perception mentioned from this very universal.
So when you say universal, what do you mean?
Universal means the phenomenon of the exterior world. This is called universal. How far you can reach to the moon, reach to any other exterior, what you can reach by stethoscope. And then universal in this physics, biophysics, there's a very body, settle in, you use microscope. You look for this phenomenon. What can you see? That is called form. The second one is perception. So perception means a lot of things that can be named, equivalent to the form, equivalent to all living beings. You give them a name, equivalent name. That can be come into the mind. That is how this pattern that we have. So in Indian culture or civilization, they see no such thing is everlasting. So they call impermanence of changing, rising and ceasing until it ceases. So mental, you cannot grab anything, but you can release or you can let go all things, no matter form or perception. So that the practice in Buddhism, the Buddha himself is how to release all this grabbing or attachment of form and name. Other than that, there is no such thing called the powers of everlasting. Only the powers of release and the powers of liberation can be found. This is a new reform of religious spirit from long histories of human being, or we call that super being. He found something everlasting, but come to the Buddha himself after his awakening. No such thing. Then what he can say? He can tell the new thing for you. So he says something. For the awakening, that is the Dharma. So he mentioned about the Dharma. So no doubt of him to explain the Dharma. So he said that, 5 aggregate is the Dharma. 6 sense space is the Dharma. New treatment, 4 new treatment is the Dharma. The feeling is the Dharma. And then he said that the 4 noble truth is the Dharma. And then the 12 links of Nidana is the Dharma. And mention about the path which carry you to the destination of cessation is the Dharma. So he mentioned it in 7 different conditions to show what is the Dharma. If you don't learn this from the resources that close to the awakened, you don't know what is the Dharma. Because the Dharma is deep and profound. The Dharma is very complete, telling the truth of form and name. Telling the path across these dangers of grabbing. Can let you release from the mental disease. We call that disease. Means the mental disease of grabbing of form. What is the form we can grabbing? Exterior. And eventually you don't grab exterior, but you grab illness, aging, and destruction. Even though that is the hopeless of destruction, facing to dying, but the anxiety and the greedy never let go. Because we facing to the darkness of the future. We never practice enough to pull the mind, concentrate into right now and here. We don't have that kind of experience. We don't form that kind of modules of holding your own mindset into oneness, into right mindful here and now. We don't practice enough to turn the mind backward to this very life, very body, and very living. So doubt is certainly we have doubt because of the confused. That's why that he formed the assembly that call all of his disciples who have faith to him, who see the Dhamma. Only two kinds of personality. One who have faith of him. So they will come to the assembly, try to follow the instruction, go into the training, or practice. So practice discipline, virtue, practice meditation, concentration, practice wisdom to maturing his insight. Come to the release. Release of what? Release of our greed, hatred, ignorance. We talk about that. Release the very life from the flow of desire realm, form realm, and formless realm, like that. So how subtle your mind can be mindful and concentrate. So the Buddha himself not mention about other beings which can bring you release, self-release, and which can bring you that what we call that freedom. He not mention about that is possible. He mentioned about the possible is after the teacher instruction, you become a self-island. Use the Dhamma as island. So you do your own part to mature or release. So I already mentioned in the past. Be up on, renunciate. Be up on this passion. Be up on cessation, maturing in release. This is what the Buddha linked into this four reliance. You work for your own salvation. I think this reform religions not mention about something that everlasting power, or what we name about that super God or multi-God can save the very life. I think this is a very unique teaching from Indian culture, because Indian culture, they have very originate related from Aryan, the culture from the west side come into India, the teaching of God, and then he create his own practice pattern and religious pattern that is called yogi training. So after yogi training, they have very deep reflection into the teachings of the God from the West. Then he found that yogi is more profound investigation and more deep into the contemplate. So after contemplate, what is this very life, mind and body? And then he found the way to the stopping, means ceases of all this movement of the web inside the mind, so that the mind will be more stabilized, more calm and peace. From there on, he could have the insight to check it properly. What is the bottom line? Can be break until I get totally free. So here, after the yogi perspective, the Buddha himself come to what I call the direct experience, and using this past skill training until he found the direct knowledge, the knowledge of liberation. So for me, read a lot of the teaching and then come to the history part by part, move back to the origin. I don't see all this saying from the knowledge is the truth. But I say that after using all the skill into the very body and mind's training, I become more careful and I become more like a scientist. Doubt, question in the doubt, then you may find the answer, overcome the doubt. That is a saying in the Chan Buddhism of China. They said that great doubt come to great enlightenment. If someone cannot question about the doubt, unless he have the faith to the teacher, that is the wise teacher he found. If he obey or have the faith of that teacher is not the right one, then he will follow the blind. So in Buddhism, we have two kinds of personality. One is follow the teacher. We call that the faith personality. One is follow the Dharma, means I don't follow either one, but I listen to all the instruction and check all these instructions before I decide. That is called the personality related to the Dharma. So the personality related to the teacher, this kind of personality is EQ very strong. EQ means emotional. And personality related to the Dharma means IQ very strong. Personality that have a little bit close to the scientist. He not follow a man, but he follow the information. Try to solve the problem by getting more and more information, getting more and more skill to check it out. This is what I found when I learned Buddhism and carry on myself in the path of this practice, I found myself, it's not one side goal, and EQ, IQ, two sides is balancing moving forward. Emotionally, I have more attached to the Buddha, to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha interested. And then the second part is IQ, from the IQ, that I will not remembering any kind of teaching as the truth, but I will relate into virtue, concentrate, and investigate, or what we call that, mind contemplation. Practice is the only solution which can examine the truth. This is what I want to share with you all about the third one, called doubt. So, self-identity, virtue, and doubt, these three factors, or what we call these three feeders, if you can probe it and bring it into purifying, then you will become an enlightened being. Means you have no doubt about religion. You have no doubt about this very body and mind. You don't have that kind of dream about a big power. They have no other power. They are only power of changing. The changing is only the power. Then you will be satisfying of this very life. No changing is the only solution for us to break the links of changing. So what is no changing about? Can anyone name it? Cessation. You see, the Buddha said that, that is the dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. Yeah. And then there's a samudaya, means the second one is the cause of unsatisfactoriness. And then the third one is the path, to overcome the cause and the unsatisfactoriness. And then after you overcome it, the fruit is appear and mature. What is the fruit? Cessation. So for me, that cessation is not equivalent to everlasting. Everlasting may be more connected to perception. Cessation is something I want to say is more deep and profound. It drops off from that. So we can see that. What is the Nibbana? Can you mention with a sentence when someone asking the Buddha? The Buddha said, the Nibbana is no attachment of name and form. So it's very super to me, very new culture after I grow my life in the mundane side and come to the Dhamma when I was 20, and then from there on transform into Chinese Buddhism when I was 26. And from there on, I become mission of the Dhamma, try to spread the Dhamma in order that I can remembering the Dhamma properly, and then tell people, explain to him to understand in order that I mature my own contemplating the Dharma. And because of you need to show you other examples, so you put it into the training of the Dharma. So the practice become followed by, after many years until today, I see my personality become more happy. And I see that all the difficulty and a lot of stress, it not too much connected to this very life. My really little bit I want to say is, when I watch from the sensual world, I see it's not individual, but I see a patterns of circle. Yeah. Every life is a pattern of circle. His mindset is in circle. His body set is in circle. He never run out from that circle. He try to round and round, round and round in that pattern. This is what I see the life. What is that pattern mean? I don't know. It's not easy to give an easy answer. It's just very profound whole movement. Just very round and round, round and round, and until what you can see is totally tight. This is called life pattern. Totally, what we call it, 俾纏住。纏住英文點講啊？阿媽有冇一個我唔記到呢個英文字。不過佢巴利文咧同中文咧講得好好啊，中文又叫束縛，束縛咗啊，好似俾嘢綁死晒咁，打晒棘咁。
Like a ball of, like a ball of, when you drink.
Maybe Kunjing know this word. Like the things in tight, is it? Is it tight?
Bound up.
Huh? Round up or tight up?
Bound.
Bound up. Yeah, might be.
Tangle.
No matter what, in Buddhist we talk about release. We not talk about like that. Okay? But the life is just opposite. Yeah. You see what opposite? The first thing is in the daily life sensual. It's a six sense base. In the sensual. We are not going release all this, but we try to carry on like that in the sensual basic. So that back into conclusion, 5 skandha is Dhamma, 6 senses basis is Dhamma, feeling is the Dhamma, 4 nutriment is the Dhamma. And then the 4 noble truth is the Dhamma. And the 12 links independent coordination is the Dhamma. And then the 37 factors of awakening is the Dhamma. At least they go 7 steps from the Buddha's mouth, telling his disciple and recorded until today. If these 7 sets of the Dhamma you not do enough study, investigate, I don't think you can overcome the doubt. The doubts of religious, the doubts of spiritual practice. Okay, this is what I want to share with you.